This is Dr. Bartolomescu, the medical futurist, and hopefully you can see me and hear me well enough. Welcome to the first live Q&A session in 2026. And today we are going to talk about something really exciting as I had quite a long, extensive longevity package experience in the last 6, 8 months. And the plan is that I will share everything that they have found, everything I've learned along the way, some insights about longevity, some specific details and data, and I will tell my whole story about all that. But of course, that's live Q&A, so the point is that we can have a chat and you can ask any questions that you want. You also sent in a few questions before the stream, so if there are no questions live, I will start with those. But it's great to see you here. It's great to get back to the live Q&A sessions. It's such a wonderful experience with all the followers of the Medical Futurist. Have some interactions, talk about really exciting things, digital health technologies, artificial intelligence. We've had dozens, if not almost 100 live Q&As before. As always, just in case, if you don't know me or the Medical Futurist in general, I'm a medical doctor by training. I finished my PhD in genomics. But since then, for almost 20 years, I've been a professional futurist called the Medical Futurist. And in that job, I do basically two things. With a small dedicated team of 10 people at the Medical Futurists, we try to provide the context around all the trends, directions, changes, transitions in medicine and healthcare, focusing on the evolution of digital health technologies, patient empowerment, artificial intelligence, generative AI for about 1 million followers worldwide. In my second arm, I essentially do the same kind of work, but through peer-reviewed research. I'm a researcher in my job basically, and we try to publish exciting and interesting and hopefully useful studies and papers and editorials about all these transitions and the evolution and progress of these amazing advanced technologies. As part of all these journeys, longevity has been playing an important role in my life, not just in the last couple of years when it has become quite a famous concept worldwide, but I think I started back in 2005, 2006, the first time I came across some really exciting wearable technologies. Now those look really old from today's perspective, but back then it was a big thing to have a fitness tracker that can track the number of steps you take a day. So I can say that I'm lucky to have witnessed all this progress and evolution, but longevity is the next step forward, especially practical longevity. So I really appreciate all these amazing examples out there, like what Brian Johnson has been doing. Eric Topol has a new book about all that. But I want to focus on the practical parts of longevity, especially those parts that you can back up with data. I've been measuring and using wearables for decades, and I think that's the only way for me, at least, to try to live a long and healthy life. So welcome everyone on the channel. Hope wearables can contribute more to longevity. Absolutely, Mark, I agree with you. That's the only way I actually see that with data, that's the only scenario through which I can make, lifestyle choices and medical decisions, even if those backed by objectively measurable data. Longevity is not the aim. It is to live more years in good health. We need to improve the quality adjusted life. Here, I agree with you. One of my PhD students is about to publish a paper about the first definition, international definition of longevity. And in that, we focus on two parts: improving the lifespan and improving health span. Because then what's the point of living to 105 if you spend the last 35 years in quite a bad health? So absolutely, I agree with you. So now, jumping right into it, if anytime you have a question, just leave a comment and I will come back to that and I will make sure to answer everything. But I thought I would give you a short introduction about what we are talking about here. So let's see the insides of the world's most comprehensive longevity package. Very briefly, I started 20 years ago. I've been measuring my sleep quality. I've been using a smart sleep alarm. I've been measuring my fitness activities, my exercises, even my stress sometimes for over 1.5, almost 2 decades. I've tried things that didn't work out so well for me, like meditation tracking with EEG sensors. So I'm not saying that every technology is useful out there, but I want to say that what's on the market, there is quite a big chance that I've tried that already, whether it's a genetic test, a microbiome test, an at-home lab test, a wearable sensor, portable ultrasound devices. I can list about more than 100 wearables and devices and tests that I've tried over the years. When we look at the infographic we published about the digital health landscape, then I can confirm that I've used rings, things that go on a belt, pulse oximeters, smartwatches, smart patches for blood pressure monitoring, wireless glucose monitors, smart inhalers, smart glasses, headbands, not earrings, otoscopes. So about 75-80% of these technologies I've tried already. And even last year, I published this, quick infographic about all the longevity, like actions and measurable things and habits, technologies and medical screenings that I had last year because I have a primary care physician and we work in a, like in a medical team, and we try to come up with a screening agenda for every year. At the same time, I'm doing a few things. I have a few habits. I measure a few important sets of data to try to contribute to my health span and lifespan. And that was the point. So after all these 20 years, which I try to summarize for you in about 1.5 minutes, when I got an offer I couldn't refuse. So in this ecosystem where I had AI already playing a role with my medical professionals and me, the patient, being a part of my medical team, I got an offer from a company called MediPredict based in Budapest. The CEO of the company called me and asked me to try their service, to go through the whole experience, and then just simply share what I think about that as objectively and freely as possible. Very briefly, what they do is that they actually give you like they measure everything that's almost humanly possible, from genomic data, all the kinds of omics data, medical reports, biological age, microbiome, metabolomics, environmental toxins, all the medical examinations you can imagine. I will talk about these in detail later. And based on all these sources of data, family history, genomics, metabolomics, and all these, they give you a sort of sets of recommendations about how to deal with your life, how to try to achieve a longer and a healthier lifespan. And after all the tests were done, I had to sit down with them for 2 hours, 4 times. First, there was a medical um, test result sharing, then genomics, then nutrition and metabolomics, and finally a complex kind of test result session where I received, suggestions about future medical screenings, an agenda that I could have in mind, what kind of things to pay attention to. So really everything that is out there. For a second, I just switch back and I don't want to start answering the questions from the preset questions. So I will focus on this short presentation first. I have to share a disclaimer. Obviously, as every single time when we review technologies, I have zero contact with the company financially. I'm not affiliated with them. I don't get sponsorship or payment. I only ask for a device, a test, a package for free, and then I share my opinion, and they see the opinion when you do. That there is simply no, I don't share these reviews with the companies beforehand so they can have any comments or feedback on that. That's very important that our review policy is out there on our site, medicalfuturist.com, and it's very clear about that. So, what kind of tests did I have? This is first. That's just the first part of the list. I will try to be as brief as possible, just mentioning the most important aspects about every single test here. Full genome sequencing included, checking my family histories, having long consultations with a genetic counselor even before the test sample was taken, and then my genome got sequenced with enough depth and details. And after that, they analyzed everything, cancer risks, meditation sensitivities, anything you can imagine that I might have inherited from my parents and grandparents. I've had 25 tubes of blood test on the first day of the testing experience. It means they checked for more than 300 blood markers, literally everything you can imagine, from cancer markers to simple markers, insulin, blood glucose tolerance test. And these tests kept on coming in day after day, week after week. So it became actually harder and harder to analyze everything as one package. I got my microbiome tested, so I had to provide a fecal sample. I did that before many times, so it was not a big thing, literally. Abdominal ultrasound and neck ultrasound as part of standard medical screenings. I had a body composition analysis called DEXA that measured my exact fat percentage and every single detail you can imagine about the insides of my body. I had a coronary CT angiography, meaning that I got some contrast materials in my blood, and then the coronary arteries around my heart were screened in as much detail as possible to look for, any kind of issue with them. I had a brain MRI, which took about 25 minutes. I got osteodensitometry test to check my bone density, a whole body MRI that took more than an hour. It was not really a pleasant experience, even though there is no radiation involved. Then I wore a Holter blood pressure monitor for 1 day, an ECG patch for 2 days. I had exercise tolerance tests. My biological age was checked from dried blood samples. I had an ophthalmology screening just like every 2 years. I have that. My ECG was tested in a resting state and also during exercise. I tried to bring it to the maximum of my performance. I had a sleep test. I will show you pictures and images about that. I had to keep a diet diary for 1 week with as many details as possible. I had a spirometry test. I wore a continuous glucose monitor for 1 week. I had those many times before, so it was not a big thing again. I had a fertility analysis. Then I had several physical examinations, a dermatologist, an ear, nose, throat specialist, gastroenterology, internal medicine, neurology, urology. And then in the very last day, I had the gastro and colonoscopy, and a toxin test from urine sample was also one of the concluding parts of this experience. You can imagine it took a few weeks. Even logistically, it was almost a nightmare to plan ahead with all these. The truth is that even the company told me that if they start showing every single detail and result, it would take, I have to stop here for a second. It would take 2 days literally to go through all the things that are positive and great about my health and longevity. So they don't do that, but they tell you that they will only tell you negative stuff. That doesn't mean that, you're prone to conditions and everything is wrong about you. It just means that that's what they can focus on for now, because otherwise it would take days to go through everything. And then during those 4 settings, 4 times 2 hours, they started sharing the data. Here, if I just shared, 5% of what they shared with me, it would take an hour just to focus on the results. But I want to go much deeper than that, and I want to share some high-level longevity insights too with you. So just a few things and a few images, 25 blood samples in the first day. It was quite a stressful day. All the imaging tests, all the medical examinations. Even though I was used to a medical screening agenda, it was a new thing for me to go through so many examinations, even some that I haven't had before. On the left, you can see my gear for the sleep test. And also you can imagine that I didn't have a good night's sleep session, a good quality sleep session. Plus, if you have a good eyes, you can even spot that I wore the blood pressure monitor when I wore the sleep test. I didn't want to waste 2 nights of sleep. So I tried to conclude everything in one. The ECG patch is on the right. There's a reason why you can see the details here. Some of the reports were in Hungarian because the whole discussion was performed in Hungarian, but I got about 10 PDF reports, hundreds of pages, genomics, microbiome, diet, nutrition, medical insights, screening agendas, anything you can imagine. For example, this is just the table of contents from the genomic report. I've learned a bunch of things about all the medication sensitivities that I have, some of the cancer risks that I inherited in my genes, some medical risks I didn't even know about that much. For example, my risk for gluten sensitivity is really high, like 8 times the normal, but I don't have it now. So that's something I have to keep in mind from now on. The most important thing I learned, I think, was the results about my thrombosis risk, which is 8 times higher than the general population. So that's something I really have to deal with, especially in prophylaxis. When I have a long flight, for example, then I have to take medications. This is the result of the biological test, biological age. I did it when I was 40 and a half years old, and my biological age was 35.7 years old. It has no clinical consequences, but it's a fun thing to know about. I got all the imaging tests. Fortunately, my spine is in good health, and I'm taking good care of it, even though I exercise 4 or 5 times a week. Body fat percentage, everything you can imagine was in the package. And it took me not just days, but weeks to go through all that, to analyze all that, to conclude some meanings. I have to even discuss some of these with a health coach that the company provided. And then still I had to discuss the results and the recommendations with my primary care physician. So now I have a longevity plan for a year ahead. You can imagine I won't have, there are not many examinations and screenings planned ahead for this year because I just had everything last September and October. So we will focus on a few lifestyle choices and dietary recommendations. But in general, I think the most important 5 insights that I learned was that longevity and working on longevity requires a lot of effort and even privacy, money, anything you can imagine. It's not an easy thing to do. And it's not that you can just buy a package and it will solve it for you. I don't think it works that way. It also doesn't work in a way that you do everything on your own without any kind of medical help. It won't work through that way either. So if you want to do a good job, then you need help. And there are actually very briefly here, just because I think I get this question many times, that how do you start? And I think there are 3 ways you can do. You can try to contribute to your own longevity. There is an easy way, but it's expensive and fast. And there is a hard way that's not that expensive, but it's much slower. The first one is that you buy a package like this. It's worth over 20,000 euros. And then they will bring you through all these examinations, give you all the recommendations you need. And then it depends on you what you do with all these. But then you won't really learn over time how to deal with all these lifestyle choices and decisions. The second is you go to a medical concierge service where a medical professional tries to guide you and navigate you through the ecosystem of healthcare, which screenings to go to, how to interpret the data. So you also learn some tricks yourself, but you're still being guided by a physician. And the third, which I think is the most beneficial, least expensive, but simply the longest route, is starting longevity yourself with a few things: smart sleep alarm, wearables, and building a relationship with your primary care physician. This way you will learn everything you need. So then for decades ahead, you can contribute to your own longevity, but it will take a long time. And it's also quite a painful kind of experience. The second insight is that it's still better to start this journey without having any major diseases. So while I was lying in the body MRI machine, which took more than an hour, in a very close space, extremely loud machine, I was thinking about, well, it's still better to lie here in that not so comfortable place and think whether they might find something than, doing the same with a symptom, trying to find out what could be the cause of that. And if you have the luxury of starting this journey before having any major diseases, please do. The third is the I think the biggest pain point. I simply don't see how this will not be the privilege of the richest. 20,000 plus euros. Imagine how many people can afford such a package. And again, you don't always have to start with such a package, but if you want to choose the simplest route, then that's still the case. And even though technologies and the cost of genome sequencing, all these have been going down, but not so dramatically to make it really affordable for the masses. I don't see how it would happen. The fourth is that lifestyle is still the strongest longevity intervention. So there's no rocket science here. The vast amount of recommendations I received were about diet, so nutrition in general, exercise, fitness, stress, and sleep. So 80% of the recommendations were around these 4 issues, just like, every single longevity or healthy lifestyle guideline would give you that. But these ones were extremely personalized based on my molecular, metabolic, genomic, lifestyle background. Everything was based on my own, personalized medical perspectives. And that's what really differs from other interventions. And the fifth is that AI does play a role in all that. So from the first day of the first results coming in, I tried to share everything with generative AI agent as an experiment to see, as a doctor, I can, determine how useful or how many hallucinations the AI is coming up with. But every single time, about 9 out of 10 times, it helped me interpret the results in practical terms. For example, the urine toxin test came back with 1 positivity. I have a higher level than normal for mercury, which is not good, but it's far away from toxic levels. Still, the American company, indicated that it's awful, I have to do something about it. And then when I uploaded the whole report into ChatGPT, we started discussing that, well, it's not good. I should try to find the resource, the source of mercury in my lifestyle, but it's far away from toxic level. So you don't have to have anxiety about that. It's something you might think about, but it's not a reason to have to be anxious about it. Just one idea or one example out of the hundreds while I've been trying to use generative AI for these purposes. Mark has a question. Good to follow the medical futures. Thank you. Oppo E4 seems useful to know if you have one or two or zero, especially family history of Alzheimer's. Absolutely. The company, the genetic counselor of the company asked me in our first setting what kind of things or risks I don't want to know about, such as Alzheimer risk or the risk for Huntington's disease, which you couldn't do anything about. But I chose to know everything. And I know it was a from this perspective, it might be a brave or a silly choice. It's hard to determine or assess. But I chose to learn everything as I just became 40 last year, and I wanted to have, a complete package about everything I can imagine or anticipate or prepare for in the future of my health. All right. So in very briefly, because it's hard to summarize this experience in a few minutes, I would say that longevity is definitely not like it's not so longevity used to be about waiting for the miracle drug that could either reverse aging or make aging a chronic condition we can treat. And all the longevity research from epigenetics to all the omics research fields out there have been focusing on trying to find that miracle drug. Maybe in the future, maybe they will find it. There is no scientific reason to think it's not going to be possible. But I cannot wait for that miracle drug. What if it only comes in 40 years? And I want to live to 100, so I want to dedicate time, attention, privacy, money to improving my health and lifespan. And that's why in the last few years, longevity has been shifting towards a more practical perspective. And that's not just living a healthy lifestyle, it's much more than that. An agenda of medical screenings, a lot of data you can measure about yourself, your access to digital health services, whole genome sequencing, microbiome tests, at-home lab tests, toxin tests, continuous glucose monitoring. All these have become possible only in the last few years. So that has become possible to make longevity as practical as possible. I think longevity is not a timeline that a company can tell you, look, based on all the data we could measure about you, here is your timeline for the next like 40 years, and this and that will happen to you in this and that moment. That's not how it works. Longevity is like a field in front of you, and you see so many routes and pathways. And the company can tell you how many things, how much effort you can put into every single of these routes. But how long you want to go on those routes is your decision. So I learned I think I got more than 100 recommendations about diet. And as I found them very useful, I've been tweaking my diet extremely in the last 2-3 months. So I think I accepted the biggest amount of recommendations in nutrition. There are some things that were fine to hear about, but I don't want to do that or go to that extreme end of the scale about those things. But for the biggest parts, I think I will keep on doing. It's about you get 100 recommendations, but I cannot live like Brian Johnson. It's simply not practical. So I will, accept about 70 of those recommendations on an average day. Sometimes 30, sometimes 85, but definitely not 100 and definitely not just 40. That's how I see longevity. It's a muscle you can build. It's like you want to learn how to play the piano, then sit down and spend time, spend precious hours, especially with the teacher, learning how to play the piano. That's the only way it works. Longevity is essentially the same kind of skill. The more time and dedication you spend with it, especially with a professional guide, the better chances you will have to learn very useful things about it. So yeah, you can keep on contributing to your own health span and lifespan. Mark, is your higher than normal mercury likely due to air pollution, especially coal burning? Seafood is I think, the highest probability solution for that. I eat a lot of seafood. I'm on a Mediterranean diet, and I was advised to eat even more seafood as part of that. Now, how to do it properly? If I keep, I stick to my diet, I might have higher mercury levels, which might have neurological toxicity on the long term. But if I stop eating seafood, then I go against my Mediterranean diet. So it's almost impossible to do it in a perfect way. So I will try to get it rechecked, the urine test for the toxins every 3 or 6 months. If it keeps being high, I will look for more and more potential sources. Ildiko, what about non-medical determinants like social interactions? How much do they contribute to longevity according to you? According to science, a lot. Um, for example, staying alone or becoming a widow at an elderly age contributes a lot to deteriorating health outcomes and patient outcomes. That's on the table. That's now evident, part of evidence-based medicine. I think it's extremely important. But to be fair with you, the company hasn't checked those. The company, I gave some feedback to the company. They haven't. They had a questionnaire about some of these social health environments and conditions of my life, but we really didn't spend much time discussing them. They also didn't spend much time with assessing cognitive and mental health in general. So I gave the feedback to them that I would definitely dedicate more attention to that. And I would even start with a psychologist because health anxiety is real when you're preparing for all these tests. There's a new expression, it's called not FOMO, but FOFO, the fear of finding out before any test or blood result. So it's in the picture, and it's quite not beneficial. So longevity is a muscle you can build. You can dedicate time, attention, privacy. You can do that. You can use variables. You can build a relationship with your primary care physician. But I want to share with you like the three, easiest first steps that if I were you, I would start with. But before that, I really want to thank those users and followers who sent in questions, and I want to dedicate some time to them. I believe if you eat smaller fish, they have less mercury in them. Okay, good point. What is some of the changes in your diet other than just being Mediterranean? I got a lot of recommendations about. I eat 5 times a day. The feedback was that it's great. My blood glucose follows those 5 meals perfectly, so that's great. Many recommendations, but one of them was that my diet is too rich in carbohydrates and fat, and I don't eat enough protein. So now I'm switching just the ratios here and there. At the same time, I got recommendations like between breakfast and lunch, I could have um, like a yogurt with granola, some oats, cranberry, and half a banana. Things like that, nothing extraordinary. I didn't have such meals in between before, so now it's a new thing. I just ate a banana or an apple. But now it's just I'm leaning towards having more balance between fat, carbohydrates, and proteins with these recommendations. I was advised to eat simply good quality bread, while I had the idea before that flour is not really good for me. There is no scientific evidence in my body, in my data, to back that up. I was advised to eat more green beans and any kind of beans in general, which is great because I love them. Some things hard to get in the country I'm living in Budapest, Hungary, like oily fish. I love it, but it's really hard to get good quality of those canned oily fish types. Plus, cranberry. Cranberry juice is one thing, but to get cranberry as a fruit that you can eat, for example, in such a meal that I mentioned, it's really a hard process, but I'm dealing with those. So just 3, 4 examples. Nothing extraordinary, but some fine tunings here and there to make better choices. All right. First question that I got before the stream even started. Here I can share it with you. What motivated you to take on such an extensive longevity program in the first place? I was surprised by the offer, but it was an offer I couldn't refuse. So first I thought, I don't want to have that much health anxiety checking every single thing, because as a physician, I knew exactly that we will check things without any purpose or reason. And medically, it's not even justifiable why I'm having all those tests. But the company insisted, because the package is worth more than 20,000 euros, it was simply something I had to try. I had to, go into the secret lab, into the depth of all the data, and see what one of the world's most, if not the most comprehensive longevity package would provide me with. I had to see it myself. So then I can talk about it not just from a bird's eye perspective, but as the, first user in the whole experience. Which tests surprised you the most? If I go back to the list, I was surprised. The idea of having a full body MRI is fantastic. There's no radiation. It's like a jackpot. But lying in that machine for 1 hour, loud noises, in a spacesuit, everything is like stuck. I cannot watch anything. I cannot listen to anything. That was a struggle. So I thought I would, even not even a clock was in the room. So I thought I would measure, count my breaths, and then I would have a sort of time scale of when the examination would be over. So that was surprisingly harder than one would imagine. And if I go back to the list, from the experience side, that was the most like surprising. Um, the toxin test results surprised me definitely. I think that's all. All right. Which test provided the most actionable insights for your day-to-day health habits? Um, it was definitely the nutrition part. So I got so many practical recommendations about diet. I even got like recipes and like example meals that I could try out, and it was very practical. So I didn't, of course, start using all of them, but I tweaked a lot of things and I changed many things in my diet, and I think it has been the most actionable part of the whole package. Doesn't eating 5 times a day drive IGF-1 and increase? Okay, also doesn't that keep your pancreas continually pumping insulin into a system, which might cause insulin resistance? Very good questions and very fair questions. First of all, it's extremely personalized. So I understand that the first part of the question is based on some evidence that we have been seeing in studies, but it's very much personalized. And that's why having a continuous glucose monitor, and after that, when the results are in, discussing the results with a dietitian, nutritionist, and a medical professional, that's the greatest package to draw conclusions from. So for me, having a day 5 meals is the strategy that works. And by having meals, I mean if between like lunch and the next meal, I have just one tiny nut, that's a meal. That counts as a meal. That's how strict I am about all that. So zero snacks in between these meals. 5 meals that were designed with as much strategy as possible, but still practical. I'm not a bodybuilder. I can't spend hours a day focusing on my diet, but I still want to live a healthy life. I want to feel myself as energized as possible, and it's only possible through such a diet. So that's my opinion about the first part of the question. About the second part, I think physiologically it's true, but the problem is my risk is much higher than that for insulin resistance. I think it runs in my entire family history, like 3 or 4 sister parents, grandparents had have insulin resistance. I was told by the company that my genetic risk for that is high. I'm aware of that. I will get my insulin checked out every 6 months from now on. So that's something I have to pay attention to, but I cannot go over a BMI, a body mass index of 25. I've never been over it. I'm around 24.9, 25.1, and I will keep that even from now on for decades, hopefully. So while physiologically it's true, I have much bigger risks to deal with here about that. Okay, no, if someone is considering this kind of comprehensive package, what should they know before signing up? That it comes with a lot of health anxiety, that you will get a lot of data. Again, 300-400 pages of PDFs. Even though they told me everything on those 4 times 2 hours long sessions, I'm still on my own and I have to create a screening agenda with my primary care physician. I have to decide which recommendations I build into my life, which ones I ignore, why I ignore them, whether I change my mind 1 year or 2 years later. So the first part is, I think, the health anxiety part, and the second is that you get a lot of things, and you will have to build these into your life gradually. So I think it will take me about half, if not a full year, to find out which ones, which recommendations, microbiome, genetics, metabolomics to use or ignore in every element or aspect of my longevity journey. Okay, we have 4 more here. Next one, which findings were most motivating and which were the hardest to act on? I start with the second one, is the easiest one. The hardest to act on, biological age sounded fun. I'm 5 years, almost 6 years younger, my biological age than my actual age. And so what? So at a dinner party, it sounds like a good first sentence or idea to throw in, but otherwise it has no clinical consequence or meaning. Also, some parts of the genetic test were just for fun. Like I knew already that genetically, if I eat asparagus, then I can smell its very distinctive smell in my urine. 1/3 of people have that olfactory, so smell receptor mutation. I have that too. It's very important though, clinically. So it's hard to act upon that. Which findings were the most motivating? I still stick to diet. I had now, even as a medical doctor, I had preconceptions about my diet. I was proven wrong in many cases based on pure objectively measurable data and metabolomical and genomic background and details. And I started changing those things and nothing bad happened. I feel great. I haven't gained any weight. I can do my exercises 4 or 5 times a week. I feel energized for most of the day. So I think that was the most motivating part. Apart from regular vitamins or minerals, do you have any supplements that you take that are outside of that realm but have specific tasks that you want to target? Absolutely crucial question. Even before this longevity experience, I used to take vitamin D throughout the year because of my skin cancer risks. I cannot really go to the sun. I never sunbathe and stuff like that. So I always took vitamin D, magnesium because I exercise a lot, and I used to take vitamin C, 0.5 gram per day. Now the company told me that based on all my results and especially my diet plan, diet diary, there is zero reason for taking vitamin C, as my body won't even be able to metabolize that. So I stopped taking that one, but magnesium and vitamin D are still part of my everyday supplements. The only, I think, supplement that they actually recommended was creatine monohydrate, which I started taking for a week or so, but I know maybe it was not enough to draw any conclusions, but I haven't felt anything. I drink a lot of water every day already. Cognitively, I'm not sure how I can increase my performance every day. So I just stopped taking that. So now I'm without supplements, and the company didn't recommend anything else, and I'm still, and I was, and I'm still against taking any unnecessary supplements when I try to have quite a comprehensive diet, and that should be enough to take care of that. All right. How do you see longevity medicine evolving in the next 5 to 10 years? Will it become more accessible? The first part is easy. Now I think longevity has like a milestone moment when many of these recommendations can become practical. Sleep quality, fitness tracking, smart sleep alarms, all these have become very accessible. Now we had a paper about that on the medical future. Is 1 billion people have at least one type of wearable sensor that can measure a health parameter or vital sign. And now lifestyle medicine is a new specialty, an evolving specialty. So some primary care physicians are shifting towards becoming lifestyle medicine specialists who can take care of patients before having any major conditions to deal with. That's a big shift. Will it become more accessible? Not really. I just simply don't see which technology or which test would become significantly cheaper to make it happen. Unfortunately, that paints a very unequal image for the next years or so. All right, 2 more from the preset questions. Can AI or digital health tools help democratize this kind of personalized insight for more people? I think that's the major point behind longevity becoming mainstream that much, that now these wearables are accessible worldwide, and a lot of them are really affordable. AI, ChatGPT is for free. Many large language models are for free. and patients are using it on the level of hundreds of millions every day to get some sort of insight. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying that it's inevitable because of doctor shortages worldwide. It's simply, it is, I think, gradually becoming a luxury to be able to meet a healthcare professional for every kind of health problem. Because of that basic math problem of how many physicians we cannot train, that's not enough, and how many patients, more and more patients need medical help, this mathematical gap between them can only be filled in by using AI. So I think that plays a big role in democratizing that access. Now, the most practical one. If someone wants to start improving their health span today, what simple steps can they take even without such a package? All right, besides the obvious things, again, sleep, exercise, diet, and stress, 85–90% of all the things you can do about your lifespan, you will find in those four categories. But if you want something really practical, at least the things I stand by, my number one longevity recommendation is having a smart sleep alarm. It's life changing. So, a smartwatch or a sleep sensor being able to wake you up from light sleep every morning, not deep sleep, because it can determine when you are shifting out from deep sleep into light sleep. So you feel more energized even when the day starts. I think that's such a low hanging fruit and it's for free and that it's almost impossible to I don't understand why people keep missing it. So the smart sleep alarm is the first one. The second is still about sleep, but it's interconnected. Now I focus on my heart rate variability, my HRV, when I check my sleep session in the morning. And the higher your HRV is, the more restful you will feel for a whole day. And a lot of things contribute to that. So if you lose weight, if you do more exercises, then your resting heart rate becomes lower, so your HRV can thrive. And the lower the resting heart rate can be, the higher HRV you can achieve while asleep. You can also, ruin it with by drinking alcohol or having a late night lunch or late night running session. Then you can, of course, elevate your resting heart rate. So then you ruin your HRV, so you won't feel rested for the whole day. But at least you know when you make a mistake and how you can go against them. And the third recommendation would be wearing a continuous glucose monitor for 2 weeks and then discussing the results with the nutrition and your primary care physician. It will give you so much data and I think even practical recommendations about how many things you can change and tweak in your diet, that's something that's extremely practical. Mark, if in high air pollution area, especially averaging, yes, better air filtration will help health, lungs, also risk of illness. I have whole house MERV 16 filter to keep AQI below 5. You're doing a great job. The only issue I have is that these filters and these machines are really expensive for the general population to adopt. I also have one in our house and it's doing a great job. And it's also, it's great that you mentioned it. It's quite surprising sometimes how high level pollutants or like things in the air the device can detect, and it's awful to see that, but at least we have a device that takes care of that. All right, no more pre-submitted question and we are running out of time, but you have to know that I published an article about all these, a lot more details about this longevity experience on medicalfuturist.com. Let me share the article with you. We published a video about that. Here is the article in the chat, in the comment section. And of course, this is just the beginning of quite a beautiful friendship of myself with longevity itself. As for the last 20 years, I've been trying to try everything and I've been trying to comment on and report about all these tests and variables. Now, I plan to keep on doing the same. One more question here. What exercises are you mainly focused on, like interval walking therapy, others, and why? Absolutely. So I have to keep exercises interesting for myself to keep on being motivated. So a general week for me looks like one running session on a treadmill, 30–40 minutes, one football session on the weekend, the best part of my week, 2 sessions with a physical trainer, doing mostly functional training, some lifting weights, but mostly functional training, and 1 session of yoga. This way, I have everything in the package. I have cardio, I build my muscles, I stretch enough, And of course, I cannot do all these every single week, but that's the ideal week. That's what the ideal week looks like. And in the meantime, I have a sport massage like once or twice a month. I go to a manual therapist once a month. That's extremely crucial for not having any injuries. And also, I have a muscle gun at home. Uh, they're also called message gun, massage guns. I call it a muscle gun. And I also have that muscle gun helps me simply take care of some injuries even before they arise. And this way, I try to feel that I take care of my body. And fortunately, that was the feedback I got from the company about my spine. That I'm 41 now. I was 40 when the test was taken, and they said my spine is like 30 years old would have the same spine health. So they told me literally whatever I'm doing, keep on doing the same. So that's why I keep on doing that kind of exercise routine. I started playing baseball because I love it 3 years ago, but I had so many surprising injuries that I felt that that's not a smart idea. Even though I love nothing more than playing baseball, I had to stop it. So I keep on sticking to football, yoga, functional training, and running sessions. So thank you so much for those being here on the live Q&A. I hope that you enjoyed this session. And of course, it's just, again, a discussion we are starting about longevity. I will dedicate the whole year to this topic. I will talk about many variables, at-home lab tests, much more practical and cheaper recommendations that we can start contributing to our own longevity. But in the meantime, thank you for being here with me today. Please know that you can find all the analysis I publish on medicalfuturist.com. You can find all the news analysis I publish daily on the Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram channels of The Medical Futurist. And we also have ebooks, executive summaries on leanpub.com. So thank you so much for being here with me today and for following The Medical Futurist. And I cannot wait to have the next live Q&A session with you here on YouTube. And of course, everyone can rewatch it if you remain on YouTube publicly available. Thank you so much again and have an excellent day. Bye.